The rain came down like angry fists on the zinc roof of Amara's small
This
compound in
cannot
Ikorodu,
be
Lagos.
happening.
Pam, Pam, Pam! Each drop sounded like an accusation, like the universe itself was angry with her. It was Christmas Eve, 24th December, the year 2019, and while other families across Lagos were preparing jollof rice, wrapping presents, and stringing colorful lights, Amara sat alone in her small sitting room with the lights off, listening to the rain and the silence. She was 42 years old, but on nights like this she felt ancient. Amara pulled her wrapper tighter around her shoulders and stared at the single candle flickering on the wooden table in front of her. The electricity had been cut off 3 weeks ago. Bills unpaid, money gone. Her small tailoring business had collapsed 6 months earlier when the shopping mall where she rented her shop was demolished for a new development project. The owner promised compensation that never came. Another Christmas alone, she whispered to no one. Her phone buzzed. She looked at the cracked screen, a message from her younger brother Tunde in London. Her heart quickened. It had been 5 years since they'd spoken, 5 years of silence after what happened. After the betrayal she would never forgive. The message read, "Amara, it's Tunde. Mummy is organizing a family reunion tomorrow at her house in Victoria Island. She's invited the whole family, Auntie Ngozi, Uncle Bayo, all of us. She wants you there. Please come. It's Christmas. It's time we made peace. I've made arrangements. There will be someone to bring you, please, sister, for Mummy." Amara's hands trembled. She didn't respond. Instead, she threw the phone onto the worn couch beside her and looked away. The wound was still too fresh, even 5 years later, even at Christmas. The rain continued its assault on the roof as Amara's mind drifted backward, like a leaf floating on dark water. She saw herself as a younger woman, vibrant, hopeful, full of dreams. She remembered when Tunde had promised to help her, when he'd borrowed money from her to study law in London. She had given him everything, her savings, her hope, her belief in his future. "Just 3 years," he'd said. "Just 3 years and I'll pay back every naira with interest. I promise you, Amara, you'll never regret this." But 3 years turned into 5, 5 turned into 10. And somewhere in that time, Tunde got married. He had children. He became a successful lawyer, and he never paid back a single naira. More than that, he never called, never visited, never even sent Christmas greetings. When she'd finally confronted him 10 years later, his response had been cold. "Amara, I was young. I didn't know what I was promising. I've built a life here. I have responsibilities. Let's not dwell on the past. That was a different time." Those words had broken her more than the financial loss. It was the dismissal, the way he'd simply erased her sacrifice like it was nothing, like she was nothing. So 5 years ago, when he'd tried to reconcile after their mother had fallen ill, Amara had refused. She'd sent back his money when he'd finally offered it, a check for triple the amount with a letter of apology. She'd torn it up and sent the pieces back in an envelope with a note. "I don't want your pity money. I wanted my brother. You chose wealth. You chose to forget me. Now live with that choice." That was the last communication between them, until tonight. At 11 p.m., as the rain finally began to soften, Amara made her decision. She would not go. She would not subject herself to the pity in their eyes, the uncomfortable conversations, the pretense that Christmas could fix 5 years of broken trust. She had her pride. She had her dignity. These were the only things poverty could not take from her. She lay down on her thin mattress, pulled her wrapper over her shoulders, and tried to sleep. But sleep wouldn't come. Her mind kept returning to her mother's face, the last time she'd seen her 3 years ago at a market in Ikorodu. Her mother had aged terribly. The lines on her face had deepened. Her hands had become frail. Come home, her mother had begged. Please, Amara, before it's too late, before we lose each other completely. But Amara had turned away, her jaw clenched, her heart locked behind walls of hurt. What if her mother wasn't well? The thought struck her like a stone in the darkness. What if this was the last Christmas? What if her stubbornness cost her the one person who had always loved her unconditionally? At 2 a.m., Amara got up and began to dress. The taxi ride to Victoria Island took 40 minutes. Amara sat in the back seat, her second-best wrapper tied around her, her feet in plastic sandals, her heart pounding like a drum in her chest. The Christmas lights of Lagos blurred past the windows, reds and golds and greens, symbols of joy and celebration that felt foreign to her. When they turned onto the tree-lined street where her mother's house stood, Amara's breath caught in her throat. The house was ablaze with lights. Christmas decorations hung from every corner. Cars lined the driveway, expensive cars, Mercedes, Range Rovers, BMWs. Her family had done well. They had moved on. She had been left behind. The taxi pulled up to the gate, and before she could even pay the driver, the front door burst open. It was Tunde. He stood in the doorway, backlit by the warm glow of the house, tears streaming down his face. "Amara!" he called out, running toward her. She got out of the taxi slowly, her body stiff, her face a mask of indifference. Tunde reached her and tried to embrace her, but she held her arms rigid at her sides. He stepped back, hurt flashing across his face, but he didn't retreat. Instead, he took her hand gently. "You came," he said, and thank God you came." "Where is Mummy?" Amara asked, her voice cold. "Inside. Come." The sitting room was full. Auntie Ngozi with her 3 children, Uncle Bayo with his wife and grandchildren, cousins she hadn't seen in years. And there, sitting in the center of it all on a large cushioned chair, was her mother. She looked smaller than Amara remembered. Frailer. But when she saw Amara, her entire face transformed. She struggled to get up, and immediately several family members rushed to help her. When she was standing, she opened her arms. "My daughter," she said, her voice breaking. "My Amara, you came home." Amara wanted to maintain her coldness. She wanted to keep her walls up. But looking at her mother's face that had always been her sanctuary, something inside her cracked. She moved forward and fell into her mother's arms, and both women wept. "I'm sorry, Mummy," Amara whispered. "I'm sorry for being angry. I'm sorry for staying away." "Shh, shh," her mother soothed, stroking her hair like she used to when Amara was a child. "It's Christmas. God has brought us together. That's all that matters." As the night wore on, the family sat together, eating small chops and drinking wine. The children played with toys in the corner. The adults caught up on 5 years of missed moments. Amara found herself laughing at stories about Tunde's children, asking questions about his wife, slowly letting the walls come down. Then, as midnight approached, her mother called everyone to attention. "I have something to tell you all," she said, her voice strong despite her frail body. "I won't be here much longer. The doctors say I have maybe 6 months, maybe less." The room fell silent. Amara's heart stopped. "But before I go," her mother continued, "I want to settle some things. I want to give my children their inheritance while I can see them receive it. I want to know that you are cared for." She turned to Amara specifically, and her eyes were full of love and sorrow. "Amara, my first daughter, my strong one. I have set aside money for you, a business fund, 2 million naira. I want you to rebuild. I want you to create the life you deserve." Amara felt the room spin. 2 million naira. It was everything. It was the answer to every prayer she'd whispered into the darkness. But she also saw her mother's face, saw the love there, saw the regret, not for herself but for the years that had been wasted, for the time that was running out. "Mummy, Amara started, but her mother held up a hand. "Wait, there's more." Her mother gestured to Tunde, who stood and walked to the back of the house. He returned carrying several wrapped boxes. He placed them at Amara's feet. "These are from all of us," her mother said. "Gifts, practical gifts. Tunde and his wife contributed. Auntie Ngozi contributed. We all wanted you to have things you need. A good bed, a generator, a new sewing machine so you can rebuild your business, good clothes, a phone. Everything you need to start again." Amara looked at the boxes. They were wrapped in beautiful paper with golden ribbons. They represented care. They represented love. They represented her family, saying, "We want you here. We want you to have a good life. Please come back to us." She should have been happy. She should have felt grateful, and she did. But she also felt something else, something uncomfortable. She felt like a burden. She felt like the poor sister who had fallen behind, and now her wealthy family was taking pity on her. She felt like the gifts were charity, like they were saying, "We've done well and we feel bad about you, so here, take these scraps from our abundance." Her pride rose up inside her like a wall of fire. "I can't accept these," Amara said, standing up abruptly. The room went quiet. "Amara," her mother said softly, "what are you saying?" "I'm saying I don't need your pity. I don't need your charity. I've survived 5 years without any of you. I'll survive the next 5 without your help." "But Amara," Tunde started. "No," she cut him off, her voice sharp. Don't pretend that money and gifts can fix what's broken. Don't pretend that you suddenly care about me because Mummy is dying and wants family unity." Her mother flinched as if slapped. "That's not fair," Auntie Ngozi said. "We've always loved you, Amara. We just what?" Amara's voice rose. "Just ignored me? Just forgot about me? Just moved on with your lives while I suffered?" "Amara," her mother said, standing with effort, "please don't do this. Not tonight, not when we're finally together." But Amara was beyond reason. The hurt that had been building for 5 years came pouring out like poison. "I came here tonight because I was weak, because I missed you. But I see now that nothing has changed. You still see me as the poor sister, the one who couldn't make it, the one who needs saving." She looked at the wrapped boxes with disgust. "Keep your gifts. Keep your money. I don't want anything from any of you." She turned and walked toward the door. "Amara, wait," her mother called out, but Amara didn't stop. She walked out into the Lagos night, got into a taxi, and went home to her small, empty compound in Ikorodu. It was 3 a.m. when Amara returned to her compound. The rain had stopped, but the ground was still wet and muddy. She opened her door and stepped inside, collapsing onto her couch, emotionally exhausted. She had done it again. She had pushed away the people who loved her. She had chosen her pride over her family, and this time it felt different. This time her mother was dying, and Amara had wasted what might have been one of the last nights they could have spent together. She wept, not quietly, but with the kind of raw, body-shaking sobs that come from the deepest part of a broken heart. She was still crying when she heard a knock on her door. It was 4 a.m. No one came to her home at 4 a.m. Amara froze. She looked around nervously and then called out, "Who is there?" "Please open the door," a woman's voice said. It was old, calm, and somehow familiar, though Amara couldn't place it. Against her better judgment, Amara opened the door. Standing in the pre-dawn darkness was an old woman. She was dressed in a faded wrapper and a white head wrap. Her face was lined with age, her eyes kind but somehow knowing. She was carrying something, a large clay pot that looked ancient. It was cracked and broken, held together with rough twine and faith. "Good morning, Amara," the woman said. May I come in? Amara should have been afraid. She should have closed the door. But something about the woman's presence felt safe. It felt like a dream. How do you know my name? Amara asked. I know many things, the woman said gently. May I come in? I have something to show you and we don't have much time. Against all logic, Amara stepped aside. The old woman entered and sat on Amara's couch as if she had been invited many times before. She placed the broken pot on the table beside the candle. Sit, she said to Amara, and Amara sat. What is this? Amara asked, looking at the pot. This is a story, the woman said, and it is for you. The old woman began to speak, and as she did, the pre-dawn light seemed to pause and the world seemed to hold its breath. Many years ago, the woman said, there was a woman named Oge. She was wealthy, so wealthy that she had houses in Lagos, Ibadan, and Abuja. She had servants and jewels and everything her heart could desire, but she was also bitter. She was bitter because her family was poor. She was bitter because she had to pull herself up from nothing while her siblings inherited wealth from their father's side of the family. The old woman picked up the broken pot. One day, Oge received news that her mother was dying. The woman who had sacrificed everything for her, who had worked in markets, who had taken in laundry, who had starved herself so her daughter could eat, was on her deathbed. Oge went to see her, but she brought no gifts of money. She brought no expensive things. She was angry, you see. She thought her mother should be grateful for how successful she had become. She thought her mother should apologize for being poor. Amara felt something cold move through her chest. When Oge arrived at her mother's compound, she found her mother in tears. Not tears of pain, but tears of sorrow that her daughter had become a woman she didn't recognize anymore. A woman so consumed by pride that she could not see love anymore. The old woman paused, running her fingers over the cracks in the pot. Oge's mother gave her this pot before she died. It was an old pot, not valuable by money's standards. It was cracked and broken. But it was the first pot Oge's mother had used when she started her marriage. It had cooked the food that nourished Oge when she was a baby. It had survived every hardship, every move, every loss, and when Oge's mother gave it to her, she said, "You are like this pot, my daughter. You have value not because you are perfect or unbroken, but because you have survived. But you will never know your true value until you stop measuring yourself against others and start measuring yourself by your ability to love." Tears streamed down the old woman's face. Oge left that house angry, still refusing to understand her mother's love. And 3 weeks later, her mother died. Oge never got to say she was sorry. She never got to say thank you. And for the rest of her life, she carried that broken pot, understanding too late what her mother had tried to teach her. The old woman placed the pot gently in Amara's hands. That pot is very old now. It has been passed down. And it has come to you, Amara, because you are at the same crossroads where Oge was. You still have time. Your mother is still alive. You can still choose differently. Amara looked at the pot in her hands, feeling its weight, seeing the repairs, understanding the metaphor in her bones. "Who are you?" she whispered. The old woman smiled, and in that smile, Amara saw something she had never noticed before. The shape of her mother's face, the curve of her mother's nose, the way her mother tilted her head when she was about to say something important. "I am someone your family has known for generations," the woman said. "I appear when one of our family members needs to remember what matters. Your great-grandmother's mother received me. Your grandmother received me. And now, you have received me." Amara's heart was pounding. "What are you saying? Who are you?" "I am what some call a memory, what others call an ancestor, what others still call an angel. It doesn't matter what name you give me. What matters is that you understand this. The gifts your family wanted to give you were not about pity. They were about love. Your brother's apology was not about money. It was about genuine remorse. And your mother's love, Amara, your mother's love has never wavered, not once in your entire life. The old woman stood to leave. But I rejected them, Amara said, her voice breaking. I was cruel. I hurt my mother on what might be one of the last nights we have together. Yes, the woman said, but it is not too late to fix it. Go to her. Go now, before the sun rises fully. Tell her what you've learned. Ask her to forgive you, and listen. Truly listen when she tells you that she has already forgiven you. Because mothers forgive before their children even ask. That is the nature of real love. The woman moved toward the door, and as she did, she began to fade. Not disappear. Fade. Like she was becoming part of the shadows. Wait, Amara called out. Will I see you again? The old woman paused at the threshold, silhouetted against the growing light of dawn. Only if you need me, she said. But my prayer is that you won't. My prayer is that you will live your life fully, loving openly and teaching your children what your mother is trying to teach you. That broken things still have value, and that the people we love are more precious than any gold. And then she was gone. Completely gone. No trace, no sound, just the memory of her presence. Amara stood alone in her small sitting room, holding the ancient clay pot in her hands. The candle was still burning. The dawn was breaking over Lagos, and Amara made a decision. She dressed quickly, leaving the pot on her table as a promise that she would return. She called a taxi and drove straight to her mother's house in Victoria Island. It was 6 a.m. The sun was just beginning to rise, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold. When she arrived, the house was still quiet. She let herself in with the key her mother had given her years ago, a key she had never returned. She walked softly to her mother's bedroom and found her sitting by the window, watching the sunrise, still dressed in the clothes from the night before. Her mother's face was tear-stained. When she saw Amara, she gasped. "Mummy," Amara said, falling to her knees in front of her mother. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I was wrong. I was so wrong. I let my hurt destroy the most precious thing I have, you. Please forgive me, please." Her mother pulled her up and wrapped her arms around her, and both women wept. "Shh, shh," her mother soothed. "There's nothing to forgive, my daughter. I forgave you the moment you walked out that door last night. I forgave you 5 years ago when you tore up Tunde's check. I forgave you the day I gave birth to you. That's what mothers do, Amara. We love, we forgive, we wait. But your money, Mummy, and the gifts, I will accept them," her mother said firmly. "Not because you need charity, but because a mother has the right to bless her children. When you have daughters, Amara, you will understand. You will want to give them everything. You will want to make their lives easier. That's not pity, that's love." Over the next few hours, as the household woke up, Amara asked forgiveness from Tunde. She looked him in the eye and said words she'd never thought she'd say. "I forgive you, not just for the money, but for the years. I understand now that you were trying to build a life, and I realize that holding on to that bitterness was only hurting me. It was never hurting you." Tunde wept and embraced her, and they spent hours talking, really talking, about their lives, their struggles, their regrets, and their hopes. Before Amara left that day, she accepted the gifts. She accepted the money. Not with shame, but with gratitude. She understood now what her mother had been trying to teach her, that receiving help is not weakness, that accepting love is not admitting defeat, and that family is the greatest wealth anyone can possess. 3 days later, Amara used some of the money to reopen her tailoring business in a small shop. but more importantly, she spent every free moment with her mother. They sat together, told stories, laughed, and cried. They made new memories to replace the ones lost to pride and hurt. When her mother passed away 6 months later, Amara was holding her hand. At the funeral, she stood with her family, truly her family now, not separated by hurt or anger. She held her brother's hand. She hugged her aunts and uncles. And in her other hand, she held the ancient clay pot, the one that had changed everything. She donated it to a museum with a plaque that read, "This pot was given to our family as
This
a reminder
ancient
that our
pot
value is
tells us
not measured
so
by our
much about
material
our
wealth or our
ancestors'
success,
daily lives
but
and
by our capacity to
artistry.
love and to
Look at
forgive.
the
May
intricate
all who see it
patterns
remember,
here.
broken things can still hold precious things." Moral lessons. 1. Pride is the costliest luxury. Amara's pride cost her 5 years with her family. It almost cost her the final months with her dying mother. The lesson: be quick to swallow your pride. Be quick to forgive. 2. Real wealth is relational. The gifts and money her family offered were valuable, yes. But the real treasure was the relationship itself, the love, the presence, the reconciliation. You can be rich in money but poor in love. You can be poor in money but rich in family. 3. Love doesn't keep score. Her mother forgave before Amara asked. Her brother apologized sincerely. Her family showed up. Real love doesn't say, "You hurt me, so now you have to earn my forgiveness." Real love says, "I'm here, I'm waiting, come home." 4. Receiving help is not weakness. Amara's initial rejection of gifts came from a place of wounded pride. She thought accepting them meant admitting she couldn't survive alone. But accepting help is not weakness. It's wisdom. It's understanding that we are not meant to walk this journey alone. 5. Some broken things are sacred. The pot was cracked and broken, held together by twine. But it was also the repository of a mother's love across generations. Sometimes what appears broken on the surface contains infinite value underneath. That, dear friends, is the story of the gold in the broken pot. A Christmas tale that reminds us that the greatest treasures in life are not found in gold or money, but in the people we love and the time we have with them. As we approach this Christmas season, I encourage you to think about the broken relationships in your life. Think about the pride that's keeping you separated from someone you love. And remember Amara's story. Remember that it is never too late to say, "I'm sorry." It is never too late to say, "I forgive you." It is never too late to come home. Subscribe to the Talking Drum Stories for more authentic African tales that will challenge you, inspire you, and remind you of the wisdom that lives in our culture, our history, and our hearts. Thank you for listening, and remember, we are all broken pots, but in our brokenness we hold the gold of human connection. Merry Christmas, and God bless you and your families.